Hey guys, getting ready to start in just about a minute and a half. If you're joining us right now, just say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. Awesome new challenge alert coming up, so pay attention. Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Dr. Nathan Thompson with the Wellness Way Yorkville. Happy Monday, guys. I hope you guys had a great weekend and a great start to your week. Uh, Tonight's going to be very interesting. We're going to be announcing a new challenge alert through the Wellness Way, which is going to be very, very important. And I'm going to go over with you kind of the ins and outs of the challenge, what you need to do, what you need to do in order to get involved with this. So, right now, if you are watching, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. If you're watching on replay, just go ahead and just type in replay. Also, where you're watching from. I always want to see where people are watching from. So really interesting new July challenge alert. So I'm going to be giving you some of the details of this challenge, how you take part in it, give you a little bit of mindset principles too. This will be well worth your time. And then in addition to that too, I'm going to go over with you some free gifts I'm going to give you at the end if you stick around long enough in order to be able to listen to everything. And then also some great deals that you can enjoy throughout the month of July. So again, if you're watching me live, say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. But the one of the biggest things I want to go over with you too, while we wait for people to jump on, is I wanted to go over some pretty interesting wins for the week. I think this is really, really important. In fact, once a week we have a staff meeting. So we meet with my staff just for an opportunity to be able to connect and become better as an office. But one of the first things I always start off with is I ask them this question: what's your win for the week? And one of the reasons why I think this is so important is because, sometimes life can beat you down a little bit and you tend to focus on all the negative things that are happening in your life, but you don't have an opportunity to be able to pause, to be able to reflect and think about all the good things that are going on. And in fact, I know I've had some staff members in the past, and they have a really, really hard time coming up with what's good in their life. And, if they have a hard time coming up with what's good in their life, then chances are they tend to be kind of a negative person. And so, and in fact, too, if you follow any of the other Wellness Way offices too, and I talk a lot about this, is about getting to causes, and see what's going on. And I know that for some people, because they've said, hey, show me some wins for the week. Does this really work? It does really work. And so I wanted just to kind of remind myself and also to remind you that, yes, what we do actually does work by looking at things from a little bit different perspective. So these are just some of the things, that happened last week. So we had a young individual who's, in 4 weeks, his acne massively improved, started healing over. In addition to that, we had another person who, came in and had terrible dry hands, like literally just skin just peeling in sheets from her hands, and that has all healed up. I had a woman who had a terrible uterine fibroid. In fact, she was bleeding for weeks on end, because the uterine fibroid was just bleeding. So she, it would respond to her hormones and she would have a menstrual cycle. I mean, she bled for, 4 to 5 weeks so badly that it made her anemic. And so we actually started looking for things that are involving, better hormone metabolism. And, when we did some proper testing, learned to find out that there was just a massive mold issue, which mycotoxins do affect the liver and how the body metabolizes hormones. There's no doubt about it. But once we started seeing that, helped her to get out of the situation. She stopped bleeding, was able to get her iron levels back up, and now she has a normal menstrual cycle. And in fact, just last week, went over her new mycotoxin test, and she has just gotten out of the situation, metabolized, gotten rid of the mold mycotoxicity, and the menstrual cycle has returned to normal and no more mold mycotoxicity. So, which is really, really good. I had another individual who suffered with, and I suffered with this too, a twitching eyelid that was just driving him nuts for about 4 years. And over the course of a couple of weeks, the twitching eyelid got better, went away. Okay. Had another woman too having a heck of a time trying to lose weight. But one of the things she didn't tell me, because on her follow up, she's like, am I crazy by saying this? But I used to have, really loose stools. I'd have 4 bowel movements before noon. And now I'm having one solid normal bowel movement every single day. I said, no, those are things that are supposed to happen. And I had an individual who had pre-diabetes, all kinds of issues, going on, and no more pre-diabetes. And in fact, too, another cool thing is he's lost about 70 pounds as a result. So those are some really, really awesome wins for the week. And even sometimes I have to remind myself of that, because there are days where I always ask the question, am I really making a difference in people's lives? And I look back and look at this and I'm like, yes, I am. Absolutely. I am making a difference in people's lives, which leads me to this. Have you more faith in a spoonful of medicine and the power that animates the living world? This is a quote from the developer of chiropractic, BJ Palmer, who had an absolute different perspective when it came to health, sickness, and disease. And this is one of my favorite quotes. Have you more faith in a spoonful of medicine than in the power that animates the living world? It just goes to show you that if you look at here in the United States, because I've been in practice for over 20 years, and I remember chiropractors telling me even 20 years ago, man, it's a lot different. There's people who are a lot sicker than ever before. And even in 20 years, one of the things that I see more and more people who are just sick. They're chronically inflamed. They have issues with fertility. They have a lot more chronic pain, a lot more chronic illness. And we're more medicated than we have ever been, than ever before, yet we still remain sick. And this is why I will fight to the death to make sure that people understand a different perspective, because you know what? Our perspective works. And so, but when you have more and more people who are having fertility issues, hormone issues, chronic pain, all these other issues that are going on, I'm not opposed to people being on medication, but what I'm opposed to them is doing nothing in order to improve their life so that they stay on that medication for the rest of their life. Because when people say, oh, we're living longer than ever before, I'm like, I agree. We're really good at putting out fires, but we're also living sicker longer than ever before. And this is why the body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism. And you know what? What it needs is it needs no interference. And the number one interference that's taking place in people's lives is inflammation. That's why, guys, if you are from the Chicagoland area and you want to work with the Wellness Way approach, you want to work with me directly, then one of the things I want you to do is get registered for our next inflammation talk. That's Tuesday, July 1st. This is an in-person event at 6:00 p.m. You're having challenges losing weight, get to the inflammation talk. You have challenges with cancer or with a low immune system function, get to the inflammation talk. You have problems conceiving or problems with infertility, because watch, this is a man and woman problem most likely. You have an issue with chronic thyroid disease, chronic joint pain, type 2 diabetes, autoimmune issues, hormone issues. All those things are tied, can be drawn back to inflammation. So you need to know what it is, you need to know where it's coming from, and how you properly are testing the body, and not looking for fires, but starting to look for causes so that you can clear a path for a happy, healthy, and a better and longer life. So get registered for that inflammation talk that's coming up a week from tomorrow. Very important, guys. I tell people, like, man, this will help you to see things from a hugely different perspective. And all you do is if you go to our Linktree profile, which you'll see it on all of our socials, and it'll say Linktree, click on that. And then the first thing to come up will be the inflammation event. And if you click on that link, that'll take you to Eventbrite. It'll take you 30 seconds to register for it. And the only thing that I ask is if you're registered for it, you are committed, come hell or high water, to be at that event. That's your ticket in to start working with me directly to figure out an approach in order to help you get your health and your life back. So in addition to that, is sometimes people are new to our page. And if you're new, say hello. But I hope you guys are well aware by now that Dr. Patrick Flynn, who is a good friend of mine, who is a mentor of mine too, and people always, ask me, how did you get involved with the Wellness Way? And I kind of tell them, well, I kind of had to. And it went back to, my wife having some health problems. I just didn't know what to do. I didn't have the training. I didn't have the tools. And he was one person that pointed me in the right direction. And my wife, she got her health back. And she got it back so tremendously that we were able to conceive on accident our fourth child. And so if our fourth child, little Elias, if he's watching right now, just want to say hello to him. He is one of my pride and joys, but I also have 3 kids. Talon, I know, who watches every single week. Gracie, who's 16, she is just an absolute saint. And then Jacoby, who's 14. Hopefully they're watching too, but they mean the absolute world to me, as does my wife. But that's one of the reasons why I got into the Wellness Way. And in fact, Dr. Patrick, he broadcasts every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock a.m. And if you just go to thewellnessway.com, you'll see Watch ADP, which is a different perspective, which is his show. He's been talking over the past several weeks about the immune system. And it really, really is fascinating, guys, because if you want better health, then one of the things you really, really have to figure out is what's going on with my immune system. And I will tell you this, our immune systems have been just under assault for such a long period of time, which is why you see so many people who are sick, they're inflamed, they don't feel well, they're fatigued, their hormones are shot, and all of that really does tie back to the immune system. So he's been going over that over the last several weeks. Tune in on Saturdays at 8 o'clock p.m. or a.m. and watch his live broadcast every single week. I guarantee you it'll be worth your time. So I promise you, I said I'm going to talk about a new challenge that we're going to be doing in July. And here is the new July challenge alert. It's the Get Fit Challenge, and it's going to be hosted by the Wellness Way. Now, I'm a huge fan of challenges, just as an FYI. I love challenges, not as an end-all be-all, but I love challenges to help people get their foot in the door and start to develop the healthy habits that will take them for as long as they want to take it. In the past, I've done hundreds of challenges. I remember we used to do the T28 challenge. And in years past too, we've also done the Man Up challenge, in which we've taken men through, kind of a 4 weeks of mentoring them, teaching them how to work out, teaching them how to lose massive amounts of weight, and also teaching them too, from a little bit different perspective, on what they can do in order to get their testosterone back. Every time that we've done a Man Up challenge, I've always gotten an email from the wife, and they're just like, "Can you please calm this down, man? My or there's been a new pregnancy or something like that." So I'm a huge fan of challenges in order to help just kind of catapult people into doing the right things, and to get them started on doing some of the right things. So the challenge for July is called the Get Fit Challenge. Now, I'm not the only one that's doing this. This is hosted by the Wellness Way. And in fact, the whole challenge is going to be hosted on TWW Plus. So you can go on to TWW Plus. I'll show you how you can get involved with that. But tons of resources, handouts, videos that you can watch. And that's on the school app. And so if you just click the link I'm going to show you here in just a second, you'll be able to get signed up for that. It's $15 a month. It's cheaper if you get a whole year membership. And guys, I'm going to tell you something. You cannot go through all of the resources that they have for you within one month. So for less of a cost of a consultation with me, you can literally almost pick my brain for the whole entire year and have an awesome membership, watch tons of videos. In fact, lots of recipes, and lots of the whole fitness, July fitness will be hosted on TWW Plus. So all you have to do is, if you click on that link tree, I put that on there, how to get a Wellness Way Plus membership. And so, like I said, it's only $15 a month. So for the cost of, you know, your meal for tonight, or the cost of some kind of drink at a restaurant, you can have a full month membership to TWW Plus and take part in the Get Fit Challenge for July. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I'm a huge fan of fitness, absolutely huge fan of fitness. And you're going to see that in just a second. But the result of what they're trying to do is to get you started so that you can do it long enough in order to develop a couple of things: better strength, better mobility, and also just to look better naked. You don't need to be offended by that, okay? Because sometimes people get offended by certain things that I say. And I'm like, don't take yourself so seriously. All right. You're not at the center of the universe. So better strength, better mobility, and overall just to start looking better naked. Okay. And that's one of the benefits of putting on some muscle mass and paying attention to your health. Now, I will say this. If you went and you asked, 100 people at Target at the front, you say, do you want better strength, better mobility? And do you want to look better naked? I guarantee you 99 out of the 100 would say, yes, I really, really do. And then they're going to ask for some kind of shortcut. Okay. So everyone wants all of this, but not everybody achieves it. And the question is why? This actually goes to two is, we're really good at figuring out what's wrong with people, but not everybody does it. Not everybody achieves health that becomes a patient here in my office. So the question you always have to ask yourself is, well, why? Or ask the question, why do people quit and why do people give up? Well, I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why. Number one, because it's hard and people don't want to do the hard things. It's hard. So why would people give up on their fitness after just a couple of weeks? Well, because it is very hard. And number two, they impose very unrealistic expectations. This is also true when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to fat loss. It's the person who decides, oh, I'm going to eat really great today. And then they do it for one day and then they're weighing themselves, and they're disappointed that the needle is not moving. So they'll have very unrealistic expectations. Here's one of the expectations when I come to fitness, because, in the past, I've owned several gyms, several CrossFit gyms. And, man, did we just see just unrealistic expectations. People would ask me, and I would tell the coaches to say this. They said, how long should I do this for? And I said, you really should do it for a year and then look back up and then kind of re-gauge kind of where you're at. So you really need to spend a year as far as working on your health. I even tell people too, you really need to be working on it for a year, because the miracles that I have seen, they don't happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What they happen is the right approach for a long period of time in order to reduce inflammation and then allow the body to recover and start to heal. And the same thing kind of applies when you're talking about fitness. So people quit because it's hard and they just impose very unrealistic expectations. Okay. Now, I've had people ask me, and I have talked about this too. I've even talked about this in my book, Transformation 28. If they, or I would say big pharma, if they develop a pill to give you all the benefits of exercise. So if all I had to do was just take a pill and all of a sudden I have better flexibility, better mobility, better strength, increased energy. If I had all of that, would you take it? If I could replace exercise for a pill, would I take it? Here's my answer. Not in a million years. And the reason why is because taking a pill wouldn't change the stinking thinking between my ears. And this is why I say doing hard work repeatedly and developing the discipline to be able to do it. The greatest adaptation that takes place when you start working on your fitness is, yes, it is your body, but the greatest adaptation is the one that occurs between your ears. You don't want something to come easy, but everybody's looking for the easy approach. They're looking for things to come easy. And the older I get, the more I'm like, make it hard, because if it's hard, I know that a lot of people are soft and they'll just give up. And, that's why before I started really working on my fitness 15 years ago, I was soft and I could have taken a pill. If I took a pill that would have changed me, I still would have stayed soft. And so this is why I would never do it, because you need to put in the hard work, because the greatest adaptation is the one that will take place between your ears. And it actually has cleared up a lot of stinking thinking that was going on in my head. Okay. Now, this is actually my favorite T-shirt, and you'll actually see you can order these T-shirts. And I put the link up to our Bonfire store. That's where you can actually get a T-shirt, your size, your color, and you can get it printed on demand and shipped directly to your house. So you will have that. And this is actually it's my favorite shirt. Obviously, Mandate Burpees is pretty good too, or the 1-star burpees. But every time I go out and I wear this shirt, someone will say, I really like that shirt. That Nobody Cares, Work Harder. Okay. And that's why that's so true, because, when you need to do things in order to change your life, in order to change your health, um, all the excuses in the world, no matter how great they are, no matter how valid they are, they're never going to move the needle forward. That's why I always say excuses are like noses. Everyone has one and they smell. All right. So if you need some workout motivation, then one of the things I would do is get a T-shirt. Nobody Cares, Work Harder. Probably my favorite is the Mandate Burpees T-shirt, only because I live in Illinois and we have a governor who is, yes, he's morbidly obese. And that just goes to show you really what his work ethic really is. Yes, he is morbidly obese. I will say that. Okay. Only because I sued the governor. We won. We got the mass off of the kids. And then rather than say, you know what I did was wrong, he just called everybody who sued him a grifter. So I will say he's obese and he should be mandated burpees. All right. So the whole idea is to really just understand and get the mindset of just keep working hard. Nobody cares about your excuse. Nobody's coming to save you too. Just start working hard. So how do you have success on the July's Get Fit Challenge through the Wellness Way? Is number one, make sure that you're following all the workouts on TWW Plus. So get a TWW Plus membership. Just go on that. You'll be able to find that link, click on there. And then number two, one of the things that they're going to be really promoting is to increase your protein intake, which I tell a lot of people, you need to increase your protein intake. You need to increase your protein intake. Probably need to increase your protein intake and probably also your fiber too. So increase your protein intake, but all the details on that as far as what you need to be doing will be on that challenge on the TWW Plus on the school app. Okay. Now, here's why this is so important, because I'm not getting any younger. I'm getting older. And in fact, I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40. But if you go to the Cleveland Clinic, they say something really, really interesting. And they talk about this idea of what's known as sarcopenia. Okay. What on earth is sarcopenia? And I see this happen in a lot of people who are my age and older. Okay. In fact, I drove by in my town the No Kings protest. And man, did I see a lot of people with sarcopenia. Holy cow. I wouldn't be asking any of those people at that protest to open up a jar of peanut butter, because I don't even know if they could open up a carton of milk. I mean, they just looked like they were very, very well. They had a lot of sarcopenia. That's one of the things that I will tell you. So, what is sarcopenia? Sarcopenia is the age-related progressive loss of muscle mass and strength. The main symptom of the condition is muscle weakness. Okay. It's muscle weakness. Now, I don't know why this covered over it, but what's interesting is they say scientists believe that sarcopenia is caused by inactivity, and eating an unhealthy diet can contribute to this disease. And I love how they need scientists in order to try to figure that out. You can figure that out with observation. Okay. But one of the things they talk about is old age. And I'm like, I don't want you to think of it as old age. I want you to think of it as adaptation. It's adaptation, because you can have a lot of young people with sarcopenia only because they sit on a couch. If all you do is sit on a couch, then one of the things that's going to happen is your body's going to adapt to be more like the couch. It's adaptation. You need to progressively overload muscles all the time in order to force them to be able to adapt. Okay. So adaptation. And this is why this is so true. I tell people when you get older, you need to be moving more and you need to be doing some level of strength training in order to preserve your muscle mass. And this is why I still have the same strength that I did when I was 30 years of age, even though I've gotten much older. But that's because I have worked at preserving it. And you don't preserve your strength by just wishing on a hope and a prayer. You preserve your strength by actually doing the work. So sarcopenia is a huge issue. And I want to give you a clinical example. Okay. This is Mary Pat. Mary Pat might be watching this, but she since has moved away from our office, and her husband Rex love them to death and still have such fond memories of working with them. But Mary Pat, I remember many, many years ago, she was in a walker. Okay. She was in a walker because she was she was overweight, had a lot of inflammation going on, and her knees were just terribly deteriorated and degenerated. And she started off. They started her off in with a cane, and then it goes into a walker. Then they tell you just shouldn't be doing things, and then pretty soon it probably would have been a wheelchair. And I remember with Mary Pat, I was like, man, how do I get hold of this person with so much potential? Because I know she wanted to get better. And I remember it must have been something that I said, because I remember one day she got off the table. She looked at me with the most serious look in her eyes. And she said, "It's going to end with me." I said, "Well, what do you mean by that, Mary Pat?" She says, "You know what? I'm so sick and tired of seeing everybody in my family decay, get sick, and die early." She says, "I'm going to leave a different legacy." So Mary Pat, she was in a walker, and then she ended up losing over 100 pounds, and she pitched her walker. And by doing the right things at the right time and being patient, this is her crossing the finish line many years ago on her first 5K race. So she was actually able to run in a 5K. And no, she didn't set any kind of world records or anything like that, but she did it. She participated. And most importantly, she finished. And this is her finishing her race. And just got me to thinking of how many people, they're at the end of their race and they don't finish their race with joy. They finish it sick, decrepit, and with no joy. And this is just the joy on her face finishing a 5K race. But I love this picture because it truly, truly lets me know of what is possible and to never give up on people. I would actually say this. It took many months to get her there. It did not happen overnight. It didn't happen in a couple of weeks. It didn't happen by her doing a 1-day fast or a 5-day fast. It took her doing the right things for many, many months and doing just the right approach to get her body to be able to adapt. But there she is, and she's run multiple 5K races now as well. So it took many, many months to get there. Now, not everybody would have done that. There's a lot of people that would have quit. And why would they have quit? Because what she did was hard, and she also didn't have unrealistic expectations. And this is one of the things too that I have to constantly remind my kids is if you ever want to do anything worthwhile, plan on doing 10 times more work than you thought you did. So many times success is not just being talented, it's just developing the mindset of not giving up, number one. And then number two, of doing the right things repeatedly. It's just persistence. That's why I tell my kids, you don't have to be the most talented, but you do have to be the ones that aren't giving up. Because we're in a society today where people quit, people give up. And honestly, they're just kind of mentally soft, which is why I tell them you need to just start doing hard things. And this is why working out and doing hard things is absolutely beneficial for them, because it develops the brain between the ears. That's the biggest adaptation that will take place. So you have to understand it's going to be hard. You have to understand you can't have unrealistic expectations, and this is why if you want to put on any kind of measurable muscle mass, this is why you're probably going to have to do this for a whole entire year. Okay. Now, I get this question asked to me by patients quite a bit. They're like, "Dr. Nate, I'm interested in building a home gym, where would you start? Okay. Now, um, there's people who come in and they're pretty deteriorated. So I want to see some things improve before I tell them, because if that was the first thing, if they came in type 2 diabetic, massively inflamed, or joints are killing them, I'm not sending them to the gym right then and there. I tell you, we need to calm some things down first, and then we can talk about this once you make some measurable improvement with some other things that are going on. But if I were to build a home gym, now let me tell you this. I used to at one time own 3 gyms, and I still had a home gym. All right. So don't tell me that you can't have a home gym, because I had 3 of them. I could have driven 30 minutes, 8 minutes, and then come to my office, because we used to have an office in our gym too, in which we would do workouts a couple of times a week for free. And but I still had a gym that I would use at home. And so here's one of the things that I would do is number one, get some coaching done. Because the first thing that you do before getting a gym is you need to become proficient in moving correctly. And this is actually where coaching comes in. This is why for a lot of people, I say you need to walk into a CrossFit gym, because those coaches there are going to know how to teach you how to move correctly, namely things like the squat, the deadlift, the press. And if you have a lot of limitations doing that, how to scale those things accordingly so that you can move towards the goal of being able to do those things. This is why, guys, coaching is so important. This is why, I think one of the biggest things that holds people back is they just have a large ego, and they just don't want to come in and say, here's what I want to go. Tell me exactly what I need to do, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it. So you need to become proficient in moving correctly. And then number two, if I were to build a home gym, I would be focusing on strength and building muscle mass. And then number three, you need to focus on conditioning, which is absolutely huge, especially with people, when they have, problems with their aerobic system, fatty liver that's going on, and you need to be working on conditioning, not necessarily to try to burn calories as much as doing conditioning the right way in order to have a hormonal response that can start to change some of the things that's driving sickness, illness, and disease. And that's why I'm such a fan of doing high intensity, short duration type conditioning. Okay. So now I want you to think of this. If I were going to build a gym, I want you to focus on, how do I build strength and muscle mass? What do I need in order to do that? I would say get a barbell, get a squat stand or a squat rack. I would invest in some dumbbells. I would invest in some kettlebells. You don't need 19,000 machines. And in fact, we have a gym down in our basement, and all we have is a barbell, a squat stand, or actually a squat rack, and we have some dumbbells and some kettlebells. And there's more than enough for our kids to get in amazing shape and to be able to build lots of muscle mass just by doing that. You don't need 19,000 machines. A lot of global gyms will tell you that you need a bunch of machines, but in all honesty, you don't need that. You need very minimal equipment, and then you need people who know how to coach you to move correctly, and then who also know how to program movements just to make sure that you're doing it hard enough to be able to build some muscle mass. Okay, so I would do that as far as building strength. And then you also do need some pieces of things with conditioning, because I don't think the only thing that you need to do is just do a bunch of strength work. You do need to influence your cardiovascular system big time. So conditioning, if I were building a home gym, one of the things that I would get is I would really, really invest in a Rogue Echo rower. And I used to say a Concept 2 rower, but I actually do like the Rogue Echo rowers now a little bit before. These things are just built like a beast. They'll last you forever. I'm also a huge fan of the Concept 2 Ski Erg, and I'm also a huge fan of a Rogue Echo bike. And I also would probably invest in a speed rope too. So now these things they're not an ungodly amount of money, because if you look at any kind of like decent like treadmill that has a motor that can keep going, and not, if you get on it and the motor just kind of dies. These things don't have motors. They don't have a bunch of chains, so they don't break really easily, and they'll go forever with minimal upkeep, with them. And each one of these probably, they're going to be anywhere from between $700 to $900. But, the thing is if you invest in that, that's something that you will have for years to come. Speed rope, a decent speed rope that you can get from Amazon probably is going to be about $30. And you don't have to necessarily get all of those, but I would be interested in investing in at least 2 out of the 4 to make sure that you're doing things that has a host of different stimuluses for any kind of cardiovascular conditioning. And I went on a rower and I went on a bike this weekend. So I've done all of those things, and I use these things every time I work out. I work out about 4 days a week now. And I'll use those almost every time that I work out, some level of conditioning, including a speed rope as well. But I really think it's important for you to have 2 out of the 4, just to make sure that you have good pieces of equipment. And you can even go on YouTube in order to look at different types of programs that can help you with your cardiovascular conditioning as well. Now, I will say this: commit. You need to commit to doing it. So ordering it, not enough. Because I see a lot of old treadmills, and really what they become is they just become a really expensive clothes hanger. All right. So don't get it with the intention of just ordering it's going to revolutionize my life. You need to commit to actually using it. Otherwise, it will just become a really expensive clothes hanger. Okay. Now, for the Get Fit Challenge, here's a couple of things. So here's a couple of things that you can start doing right now. Okay. So for the Get Fit Challenge, this was just released and this starts in July. But there are certain things that are going to help you on your journey. Dr. Nate, do you take turmeric? Yes, actually, right now I am, in fact, taking turmeric. Turmeric is actually great. Yes, it does help with some inflammation. Yes, it does help with some joint pain. A lot of times, what people don't realize is turmeric does have a very mild antidepressive effect as well. So that's why for some people, we'll have them go on things like St. John's wort or for turmeric. There's a couple of things that kind of preclude some people from being able to do it. But you'll notice that turmeric, things to help, because we are going to have you get a little bit more protein in as well. Boswellia is great for the joints. Betaine hydrochloric acid. And in fact, I'm going to be going to eat right after this, and I'm pulling it out, and I will be taking betaine hydrochloric acid in order to make sure I'm getting good stomach digestion, good protein digestion. And so getting enough protein this is why I'm a huge fan of bone broth protein. Bone broth protein isn't necessarily the best for putting on muscle mass, but it's good for your soft tissue. So it's good for skin, joint, hair, nails, gastrointestinal barrier. It's all great for that. And I get probably about 70 grams of bone broth protein in per day. I think it's really, really important for healthy, good collagen formation. And I really think that it supports a lot of other things as well. And I think it's actually one of the things to help you stay and look young as well. So, no, I'm not 72 years of age, but I do think that I look a lot younger than some people who are the same age as me. So starting off in July, you'll be able to get those things 10% off. And so all you have to do is, if you go to our link tree, you'll see it on there, the Wellness Way store. You may need to create an account. And then when you do that, you just type in the code 5058 at checkout. And that way it just says, hey, Dr. Nathan Thompson authorized you to be able to get that. So it's okay. And that will just allow that to be able to push through. We do have the code because we just don't want people to become lazy supplement takers too. So make sure you enter that code in and get those things that you need for your challenge. Okay. This is why I think bone broth is actually really, really good. Now, if you stuck with me long enough, I'm going to give you a free gift. Okay. So July has a lot of awesome resources on the school app for the Wellness Way Get Fit Challenge. But also, this book has probably been downloaded 500 or 600 times. But there's also a free ebook. If you go to our Linktree profile, click on that, and then you'll see a book, Home Workouts with Minimal Equipment. So it goes over some of the equipment that you need. But there's about 75 workouts in there. And in fact, if you did this 3 times a week and did these, then probably you would only be repeating the workouts one time during the year, which allows for a lot of variability. And remember, one of the things that helps growth is variability. So it's not doing the same things over and over and over again. So if you go to Linktree, just click on that. You'll be able to download that free ebook. I wrote it about 4 or 5 years ago, and the idea behind it's never ever going to change. And so you could take this book and know how to do the movements, and you could get a very, very good stimulus if you're doing it. So if in fact you do download that book, let me know. Send me a message, download that. Heck, even message me, send me a picture of you working out, because I want to know that people aren't just thinking about doing it or planning on doing it. I want to know that they are in fact even doing it, which leads me to this. Just good intentions don't get you anywhere. But our next inflammation event is going to be on Tuesday, July 1st. That's a week from tomorrow at 6:00 p.m. So if you're from the Chicagoland area and you want to work with me directly, and you may suffer with some problems with weight loss resistance, immune system issues, hormone issues, chronic joint pain, autoimmunity, things with your immune system, get registered for that right now. Please don't delay. Please don't delay. Get registered for that. As long as you click the link on Linktree, and you'll see that pop up. You'll even see it shake a little bit, so you know that's the right link. And then you go ahead and click that, and you'll be able to register for our inflammation event. It'll only take you about 30 seconds to get registered for that. Okay. So the new July challenge alert, the Get Fit Challenge, all you have to do is you'll see the Wellness Way Plus membership. That will get you in with all the videos, all the content, the workouts to be doing throughout the whole entire month. That'll be really, really good. It costs you $15, which is cheaper than a personal trainer. And it's also way cheaper than a gym membership, too. Although I am a big fan of being accountable by having a gym membership. That's why I love going to a CrossFit gym so much. And in fact, I will tell you this. I have a home gym, and I still go to a CrossFit gym 4 times a week, because I think accountability is important. And I also think, there's nothing that replaces getting into an environment that's just has the environment of just working hard. So I think that that's really, really important. So get that Wellness Way Plus membership so that you know exactly what to do for the whole July Get Fit Challenge. Okay. Final thought. Okay. Final thought. Take this to heart. It's actions, not intentions, that move the needle. It's actions, not intentions, that move the needle. Your health doesn't care what you plan on doing. It cares only about what you are actually doing. And I love when people, come up to me and they're like, yeah, this is what I plan on doing. I'm like, I don't need to know about it. Tell me what you've done, not what you plan on doing. And that's why what moves the needle, it's action. It's massive action. It's taking massive action for a long period of time and then remeasuring over the course of several months or even years to see if you need to course correct. So health doesn't care about what you plan on doing down the road. It only cares about what you've done or what you have actually done. So not what you are, not what you plan on doing. And this is why, guys, I think the biggest problem is everybody feels safe and feels warm and cuddly with what they plan to do. This is kind of like, people say, oh, the diet starts tomorrow, and you feel really good about what you plan on doing, but tomorrow never comes. The time to do action is today. The time to start getting to the inflammation talk is today. The time to start getting into shape is today. This time to start changing, start revolutionizing your life. The time to do it is today. It's not tomorrow. So please don't wait on doing that. Okay. So Get Fit Challenge. That's our new July challenge. All right. And this is going to be hosted by the Wellness Way. I know in the past we've done, through our office, we've done a mandate burpee challenge. We've done a 5 minutes of fire challenge. We've done the You Don't Know Squat challenge. All of those are great. But guys, we're going to have thousands of people who are going to be behind this. And this is why, how do we change healthcare when we have a few committed people who are willing to put in the work? And that's why I'm counting on you to put in the work coming up for next month for July. So that's the new challenge alert. All right. So next week will most likely be a live question and answer. So if you want the possibility of your question answered live, please make sure you tune in that broadcast. I know I always say I'm going live at 7 o'clock p.m. and I end up going earlier. So just, I always say if you're on time, you're late. So make sure that you are there. However, I am going to be traveling this weekend, which is why I probably won't have a lot of time to come up with some kind of topic. And that's why Monday will be a live question and answer next week. So if you got any questions, just reach out, just message me. And also we'll be answering questions too during that live broadcast. So get registered for that Get Fit Challenge coming up in July. Get those resources, download that book, get registered for the Inflammation Talk. The biggest thing I want to tell you is your health can start to move forward if you take massive action. So start taking massive action today. And I'll see you guys on the mountaintop. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you don't follow me, please make sure you give me a follow. Make sure you share this video with other people and let me know, not what you plan on doing, but let me know what you are in fact doing. Because remember, action is what moves the needle forward. Thank you guys again for listening to this live broadcast. I love all of you. Appreciate all of you. And as I always say, remember who you are. And we'll see you guys